Microphone working? It is? Okay, it is. Welcome to the April meeting of the Houston County Historical Society. We'll call the meeting to order. If Mr. Mitchell Smithy would lead us in the pledge to the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Minutes for January and February. Did everybody receive those? Okay. The minutes for February was just about the program, so there was no financial or minute approval for those for that month. The minutes for January, is there a motion to approve the minutes for January?
I'll move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Got that? Financial report. Again, we did not have a financial report for February. The financial report for January. Anyone like to make a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Leah.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so is everyone receiving their minutes? Okay. And again, we have not had a real meeting since January, but we had a wonderful meeting with the Houston County Area Chamber of Commerce when Mr. Baker presented in February. Hope you all were available to attend that. It was a very good program. Melissa, would you like to update us at the archives, please? Hello, for those of you who don't know me, which I think everybody here knows me, I'm Melissa Barker, the Houston County Archivist. And I can report to everyone that the room that the county mayor had given us, which is Dave Harden's old room across the hall from the archives, is actually completed. But anybody can come now to do research in a very nice place. We have put in drop ceilings to hide all of the wonderful waterworks and pipes. We have got the carpet. It's been cleaned, and we have put in our map cabinets, a nice, wonderful couple of research tables and chairs. So we are ready for researchers. Now we have to work on the other room because it's in pretty bad shape. We have all of our shelving that we got with grant money is actually sitting in the hallway, waiting for us to put them together. It's those wire metal shelving that are really easy to put together, and they're going to be on wheels, so that we can move them as we need to get the boxes, so we can put as many shelving units in that room as possible. So that's where we are with that. We had a great turnout at Irish Day. We had many, many people come visit the archives from all over the country. It's amazing to me when they come in and they say, well, we're from here, but we have ancestors from here. And they just want to come and see where their ancestors lived. So we had a great turnout. What we've started to do in the archives, we started on Irish Day, is we have the Houston County Historical Society books on display, the cemetery book and the pictorial history. And we are collecting the monies for that, and we're going to be turning it into the Historical Society. And we sold 2 books at Irish Day. So we're helping y'all to try to sell these books, because they're also in my closet at the archives. So we're going to sell them all to get them out of the closet. Donations. We have gotten a couple of really good donations. The box behind me, I'm going to open, and I've left it closed because I want you to hear the sound that this box makes when it opens. It's very creepy to some people, but to me it says old and precious. So I'm going to open the box. This was actually purchased by all of you. Jerry and I have been watching this box on eBay for how long?
Year.
For a year. A gentleman was selling it, it was for over $100 when he first listed it. And so I didn't have the money, the archives didn't have the money, and I didn't really say anything to Jerry, although we did talk about it. And so we both have been watching it. I even contacted the gentleman and asked him if he'd be willing to donate it to the archives because he was in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Mississippi. I said, he needs to come back home, to the archives. And so he said, no, he says, I'm on a fixed income, this is how I make my money. I said, okay, I understand that. And so Jerry and I kept watching it. Well, one day I got a message from eBay, because you can sign up to get alerts. And it was for $79. It had come down to $79. So I sent a message out to the officers of the Historical Society, and I said, this, and of course Jerry knew, it has come down to this. I said, over the years, the Historical Society has asked me over and over, can we purchase anything for the archives? And I've always said no, that I've tried to purchase everything out of my budget that the county provides for us. And so this time I said, I want this. I really want this to bring this back home to Houston County. So I put out an email and everyone wholeheartedly agreed. And Miss Betty was the first one to answer me and said, yeah, we need this back in Houston County. So what is it? If anyone says it. This is from the Crossroads Service Station. These are packets of receipts for people who purchase things. As you can see on the packet, it has the listing, and inside the packet are the actual receipts for individual people. So how he got it, but thankfully he was selling it, and we can now say we've got it back here in the archives. Yes?
What are the years?
This is dated in the 53, 54, 48, 52, around that time frame.
Give us some names.
Ooh, okay. E.W. Parker, A.G. Pursley, Eugene Pulley, Conrad Parker, B.O. Pitt, anybody recognizing the names? Clarence Parker, Robert Proctor, he was in Sladen. But you all are welcome to look through these. They're not in that, not really fragile, but you can come up and look at them after the meeting. And then on Irish Day, Mr. Perry Stone Uffleman. How many of us know Perry Stone Uffleman?
Yeah, I know.
He and his, I don't know who else, but he and some family members are going through Perry's grandfather's records, Leon F. Stone. Evidently, they have a lot of records. They didn't throw anything away. And some of you may or may not know, Mr. Stone was mayor of Erin. He was also a representative. Was he a senator or a representative, Miss Betty? One of the two.
I don't know, people don't know him by the name of Leon, we called him Kilowatt.
Kilowatt, that's right, that's his nickname. So, but Perry told me that the family are going through all his papers, and that once they have gotten out what they want, they're going to donate the whole kit and caboodle to the archives. From his congressional period, from when he was city mayor. So he brought me a couple of items to kind of tease me, I think. And what he brought me was his license plate. It's from 1956.
The license plate used to be just a number, because Bob's daddy had number 35 for years.
Yeah.
Is this number 35?
So as soon as they get through going through, I'm going to get documents, photographs. So there's no telling what we're going to get. But Perry is just came to visit the archives to see where the records were going to be stored, and he is very pleased with our new room and our vault, and so he feels very safe about donating the records. So we're excited about when that's going to happen. And lastly, I'm kind of nervous tonight because my teacher's in the room. I have to tell this story because historical societies are about stories, aren't they? They're about history. They're about local history, genealogy. The gentleman that's speaking tonight was actually my biology teacher in high school. He was a very good teacher. He's one that I remember as being one that I really liked. But we played a little bit of a joke on him when I was in school. My friends and I, it was the day that we were going to be dissecting the frog. My mother worked at Good Lark Hospital, at that time Good Lark Hospital, in surgery. I got some surgery scrubs and masks and gloves from her, and we set up and was all dressed up for that when he walked into the room. Because we were dissecting her frog, we needed to be, scrubbed up there. But I like to say that that was the first time we saw him laugh out loud. So, Ann, before I get done, I have brought my yearbook with our picture in it, because I tell people this story all the time. And where you can see it, it's down here in the corner. They took a picture of us in scrubs. So, I'm very excited to have him here tonight. And that's all I've got.
Here.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move along to old business. In one of the minutes that we had, we mentioned that the bricks had been processed and laid. They look very good. If you have not seen them, you need to go over and look at them. There's hundreds of them, right? Like 300 plus or something. There's a whole lot more than I thought there was. But they do look great, and you need to check them out if you are in that
I
area.
did get a letter from someone that asked if the bricks if they're from out of town, if the bricks had been put down, and so I will answer that and say, yes, they are.
Or we could put pictures of them on the Facebook page that we have, maybe, Jerry?
Yes, ma'am.
Put pictures of the
Yes,
bricks
ma'am.
on the Facebook.
Yes, I was answering your question.
Okay. And we also asked Jerry to check on an external drive for the updating some of our old records. Can you give us an update on that, Jerry?
I have it in the financial report.
Yeah, I have a couple things here. I have one of the external drives right here with the pictures. And we got an issue with the other one of putting DVDs onto an external drive, and we're working on that. So it's gonna take a long process to put all them on there, but we're gonna present this to Melissa to hold into the archives, into the vault for us. And I may come get it time to time and update it, okay?
Awesome,
All right.
great, thanks.
And that's 4 terabytes. I got 2 of them, and the other one's gonna be for the DVDs, is what it's gonna be. Is there anything?
Go ahead, Jerry,
All right.
you got the floor.
A lady sent me this, and it's Sturt Houston County Fair School Children's Ticket, Thursday, September the 8th, 2010. The Nixon Picker Secretary and Treasurer. She bought this at a thrift store in a book in Akron, Ohio, and she went online and found our Historic Society site. And she sent me a letter and asked me if I'd like to have it, because she seen that, we were pretty active in our Historic Society. She said, this is in an old book I bought from a thrift store. I was amazed at the condition of it, and it being so old, glad I found a home for it. So I'm going to turn this over to Melissa too. And on the back of it, it has a name on there, Walter Belcher, and I think it says Green Chapel,
Jerry, what's the date on it?
1910.
Okay.
So it's 109 years old. This lady's name is Gail Bilber, is what her name is, and like I say, she's from Akron, Ohio, and I can just give you the letter too.
Awesome, thank you, Corey.
Pretty interesting. I didn't know we had joint fairs in 1910. So. Also, on the Historic Society, I get some activity on there. I met a gentleman named Rick Revel, R-E-V-E-L, I'm not pronouncing that right. And he's wrote a book. And the book that he wrote is about Jack Henson. And I think he's an impersonator of Civil War and Revolutionary War from Dover. I believe that's where he's from. I tried to get some information from him, and I shared his information on our website. And if I'm mistaken, then the paperback was going to come out in April. I think it's going to be $35, and then the hardback is going to come out in May, I believe. Now, I may be wrong about this. It may be all of it's coming out in May. But the name of the book is In the Hills of Tennessee, The Uncivil War, 1862. And he's got a website, and like I say, his name is Rick, R-E-V-E-L is his last name. And he does have a website, and he did share some information on the the Houston County Historic Society site too. And you can go on there and look at the book, and this is a picture of the book. I don't know if anybody can see it or not, but this is what the
Where
book.
did you say he was from?
I'm believing he's from Dover.
I seen a man, I thought he was from Paris at the time.
Paris?
He reenacted, like Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett.
Well, I've seen pictures of him where he's done revolutionary uniforms and different things like that.
And he's very good.
Yeah, and
It's the one that I've seen.
one of my ideas is, we have an opening for August and September for the Historic Society, and I think it might be a good idea to try to book him. Because he'll be doing a book sale then, and then maybe he'll want to come in and do the program for us, and then try to sell his books too, so. I'll try to get in touch with him tonight or tomorrow and see if he's available within 2 dates. So, because I know we have a few dates that are open, and we are looking for speakers for, I think, August and September right now. Billy Frank, he's backed out this year. He said he don't want to do another program because he don't feel like he's putting wholehearted effort into it, where I think every one of his programs have been great. I mean, I don't know if everybody's been here for him or not, but everything that.
I'll still give him an option to,
Well, I'm trying to bribe him.
oh,
What I'm trying to do is, he has some negatives, and we bought the negative scanner, and I've been scanning some negatives for him, and I'm gonna try to bribe him, and say, hey, look.
so be on.
Yeah.
Or tell him we'll give him a year off, but he's year come back.
Okay, then Kay's got a picture of him performing as George Washington. But I will contact him and see about getting him to come up and speak for us and bring his book with him, because I'm always interested at every edge of the Jack Henson story, because I've heard 2 of them now, and we'll see what he has. So.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Betty, are you ready to give the financial report, since I skipped over you earlier?
The balance in our checking account in our January meeting was $4,499.61. Our income for this 4 months has been $286.25. That's $20 for books and $260 in dues, $625 in interest. Our expenses were $707. That was $250 for the archive equipment and $79.98 for material. Mailing supplies was $77.02, and when postage went up, I went to the post office and bought 6 rolls of stamps at a cheaper price, so that was $300, saved us a little bit there. And anyway, our balance now on April the 9th, today, is $4,078.86 in the checking account. And our certificate of deposit, we have $11,013.92.
Very good. Which reminds us that we do still have some books for sale. I have some with me now, if you're interested, and that makes our little approve, a motion to approve Ms. Betty's report.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good job. So we do have the books for sale. I have had a request for a cemetery book myself. I try to keep them in my car just in case. And along the financial line, we still have dues. If you are so inclined, the dues are $10 per year per household, or $50 for a lifetime. And I guess the new business, the upcoming meetings. Mr. Allen McCampbell, would you like to tell us about next month's meeting?
Next month's meeting will be at the McCampbell Pavilion. We'll have food. Food, yeah, food.
Bring
Um,
food,
And it's provided by the people. No, I'll have barbecue, but then I will. But the fellow that's going to speak is really an outstanding historian and speaker on presidents of the United States. And what he will do is he will describe many of them and the things we didn't know about. It's all about them and their family and such, so it's really interesting.
And that'll be on Friday, May
Yeah.
10th. Friday afternoon, 6 o'clock picnic at the McCampbell Pavilion, if you can refer to your minutes, and hopefully we'll not have any showers and thunderstorms and stuff like we have in the past. Yes, we have. Is there any other old or new business that you all would like to discuss? Yeah.
Donald and I and Jackie, I think too, are gonna do a little program for the homeschoolers about the lime kills on April the 30th. And we're gonna meet in the archives. And there'll be grades kindergarten through 12th grade,
What time?
at 11.
11. Okay. Good job. Well, there's no more old business or new business. I'll turn over the program to Leah to introduce. Oh,
Walked in, so.
Glenn can introduce our speaker for the night. Thank you.
Hopefully Leah brought a copy.
I did.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry for late. We started the budget committee hearings today, and I'm just running a little behind. Our speaker tonight was born on the family farm in Montgomery County, Tennessee, behind the Montgomery Central School Complex. My granddaddy actually water witched the ponds that are up there, if anybody knows about those. For those of you who remember, his big sister was my mother, Elaine Baggett. Phil graduated from Austin Peay and taught biology at Dixon County High School for 39 years. After a couple of years of enjoying retirement, Phil got a part-time position teaching biology at Austin Peay. He's still there 7 years later. At the urging of his eldest son, Phil became a Civil War reenactor with an artillery unit. He served there as a camp cook. And he brought us a couple of samples of his cooking for us to try after the meeting. Phil and his late wife Dee enjoyed storytelling. Several times they visited the International Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee. And that's actually the second time I've heard about this today. We had a luncheon at the office, and one of our doctors talked about how much fun she had taken her children and her grandchildren to that. It's apparently really, really very special. During his reenactment days, Phil decided to combine his love for storytelling and reenacting and began developing a storyline for the characters. Please welcome my uncle, Philip Ross Chadwick, and his initial literary offering, historical fictional novel, The Yankee Present.
I don't think I need a microphone. I teach in a room at Austin Peay that seats 99, and they're about as far back as that Pepsi machine over there. But thank you for coming out tonight. This is probably about the 4th time I've done a program and never had this many people before.
Don't be nervous.
You know, those were the good old days, Melissa. You know, kids were a lot different then. My goodness. You know, I mean, little pranks like, well, that wasn't a prank. That was just being responsible dissectors, you know. But anyway, as Glenn said, well, Glenn told a bunch of stuff about me. I got one thing about Glenn.
Uh-oh.
Glenn couldn't say Uncle Philip. He'd call me Unky Slup. So that's, you know, I'm Unky Slup. But yes, I've been a high school biology teacher for a number of years, and now I'm at Austin Peay teaching, and I've had some students from Dixon County, from Houston County, from Stewart County, and all sorts of places around here. I have a girl now in class, Lindsay Simmons. Anybody know? Anyway, she said, because I kidded her about Irish Day, you know, I came in on Monday, and I said, well, you know, you got the town painted up green for this weekend, and she grinned, you know, and said, yeah, we got it green, you know, but anyway. So how does somebody that teaches biology, and I've taught chemistry and physics and other science subjects too, how do you wind up writing a history story? Well, as Glenn said, my wife and I went to storytelling festivals, and you don't have to go all the way to Jonesboro. The closest one probably here is in Florence, Alabama, the third weekend in May every year. And you think storytelling. I remember Dee came home from school one day and she said, well, we got a new teacher, and Betty said that we needed to go to storytelling. And I said, storytelling, what do you do, sit around on bales of hay and a campfire? And she said, well, I think that's about the way it started in Jonesboro many, many years ago. I guess we probably went to about, I think we figured up one time about 19 or 20 of them. And it's kind of, well, it's not exactly like stand-up comedy, but the different tellers have different takes on things. I mean, we got one guy that just tells out now whoppers. He was the West Virginia Liars champion 5 times in a row. And probably would have been 6, but they made him MC of the ceremony, so he couldn't participate. And then we have a fellow from North Carolina, and he tells about growing up with all of his 6 uncles. And one afternoon he did a workshop, and his title was How to Kill Grandma. You kill grandma by not telling grandma's stories, because all it takes is maybe a generation or 2, and nobody knows anything about grandma. Well, that stuck in my mind, and like I say, sitting around the campfire reenactments some nights, I'm thinking, gosh, what I mean, this is nothing like, I know it's nothing like what, you know, if they were in downtime, you know, like winter quarters or whatever, sitting around the campfire, freezing to death. You know, this is, you know, but it gave a little impetus to the idea of, well, I knew about the character in my story. I'm the great-grandnephew of my character, Thomas Hanner Lott. And so I'm not sure what that exactly makes you. Lee can figure that out. Yeah. But so I grew up on the family farm. My grandkids are the 6th generation on this farm. And so I started thinking, and I think one night I sat down and wrote about 6 typewritten pages, and I kind of left it hanging. And my wife said, no, you can't kill him off. I said, well, it didn't say, you know. So I kept adding a little more, and finally came up with, I'm going to break the book with me, so I wouldn't have to step with it. So I'm going to step over this board. But I came up with the book, and a company called Westbow Publishers published it for me. They're a division of Thomas Nelson. And the cover, I got the idea for Yankee Present, but the cover, these are his actual muster rolls. And when they took roll, you know, when they got them together, and the one thing I wanted them to be in the book, but they sent me and said, well, these are not going to reprint real well. And I said, I still want them on the cover though. And the mini ball down here, that's where I got the title, The Yankee Present. The mini ball was the present. So you can imagine probably that Thomas is going to get shot. Well, he does. But so, you know, I wrote a while, we decided a while. I actually contacted the publisher in the fall of 2010. So it took me a good while to finish this, because I think of things and I said, well, I'll put it in the story here. Well, as was said, history is about stories. And I've incorporated a couple of family stories in here in one way or another. Everybody's got a story. This is just a commercial for everybody. Each one of you've got a story. You may not think so, but you've got a story. Something you did, something that happened to you, or something about the family, you know, great-grandpa, you know, Uncle Moses, you know, Aunt Sophie, somebody, you've got stories, you know. And if you don't write them down, nobody's going to know anything about them. You know? And if you don't write down things about you, your grandchildren are not going to know much about you. So that was sort of part of the impetus of writing this story. So I'll just read you the verb off the back here. Thomas Henry Lyle, like so many other Southerners, finds himself embroiled in a war that will change his life forever. As a Confederate soldier, he fights in battle while trying to retain his humanity and not damn his soul. During in-between times, he tries to find the beauty in life beneath the shade of cottonwoods by breezy riverbeds. An incident in battle ushers Thomas from the rank of private to sergeant, but the glory is short-lived as he's soon wounded. He gets help from a woman who reminds him of much of his wife, Jenny. In and out of consciousness, he has flashbacks to his safe, happy life in Tennessee and makes his mission to return home to his beloved. But when the war let him go so easily. You know, of course, he starts off as a private. And something happens in the story that I did elevate him to a sergeant. Well, when I got his muster rolls, guess what I found? He was elevated to a sergeant. Don't know what he did, but he was elevated to a sergeant. And Leah was showing me something, some dates in here, a little something. I don't know where I came up with them, but she's got it, that the character in here was a character with those same dates. And I'm not sure, I don't think I had some kind of telepathic vision one night or something, but anyway, you've got, you need to go home tonight and you think of something on the way home. Something that you did, something that's happened, first time you kissed your wife under the apple tree or what. You think of something to write down because your grandkids, how many of you have grandkids anyway? How many of you have great grandkids? Anybody? See, they'll never know anything about you if you don't write it down. Okay? So, one of the stories, I want to read a little portion of the book here. In fact, maybe one of the longer chapters, but it's a story. I was still in high school, and I was getting close to Halloween, and we're sitting around one night, and something was said about Halloween pranks, and my dad kind of chuckled a little bit, and he said, yeah, I remember some guys in the neighborhood. My dad was born in 1898, so, he was a teenager. I didn't figure when he was a teenager, but 1898. He said, yeah, some boys in the neighborhood got together and stacked this old man's wood on his front porch so he couldn't get out the door. I said, Dad, were you in on it? Well, he never would admit being in on it, but he seemed to know a lot about it. Okay. So, Thomas and his brother, here they go. Pa, can Thomas and I go to the Halloween festival at school tonight? Samuel asked. Everyone was enjoying Ma's Saturday morning breakfast at the table. She prepared fried side meat, made gravy from the dripping, scrambled eggs, fried potatoes, and baked biscuits. There was also buttered milk from the spring house and blackberry jam made from the berry pickings of last summer. As Thomas and Samuel dressed for breakfast, they decided Pa would be more inclined to grant their request if Samuel asked, since he was the younger. What's going on? Questioned Pa. Oh, the usual bobbing for apples, square dancing, and games, Samuel replied as he poured himself another glass of milk. Well, besides your usual Saturday chores, I want you to clean out the corn crib. We'll start picking corn Saturday. Do repairs needed? And when you're done, you may go, Pa explained. Yes, sir, both boys said at the same time. Ma admonished the boys to slow down. I did not raise a couple of pigs. Okay. Saturday chores took less time. Thomas had Samuel's help. Sometimes Samuel was able to help a little before he had to leave for school. Besides feeding the livestock of the day, corn had to be shelled for feeding the chickens, and wood had to be chopped for the kitchen stove for the coming week. I've done that. After regular chores, the boys attacked the corn crib. They moved the remaining corn to the front so it would be used up first and cleaned up extra shucks and corn cobs. They patched some holes to keep squirrels from getting in for a free meal. I wonder how many bushels we'll make this year, Samuel said. It's been a good year, Thomas said. The rain came at the right time. No matter how many bushels we'll make, old man Wilson will tell everybody his crop is better than the whole community. Zeke Wilson, I didn't think anybody in the community was ever named Zeke Wilson because, didn't want to get sued. But Zeke Wilson was the community know-it-all. His crops were always better. His mules could pull more. He always knew the answer to any question. Jumper could tree more squirrels and catch more rabbits than any other dog in the county. His dog was named Jumper because of the way he tracked. Instead of putting his nose to the ground for the scent, he jumped to spot the game he chased since he tracked by sight. had a dog that did the same thing. I wish somebody would put him in his place, Samuel said as they worked. Without much talking, they finished their task. They gathered the tools and returned them to the workshop. Samuel caught a mischievous grin on Thomas's face. "What are you thinking?" Samuel asked. Thomas gave a sly wink. "You get the hot water from the kitchen kettle, I'll get the wash tub." Samuel removed the wash tub from the nail on the back porch. You ever take a bath in a wash tub? Me too. "I'll meet you upstairs." They ascended the steps of their room above the porch. Thomas had a bucket of cold water from the cistern and the kettle of hot water from the stove. After mixing the water, Thomas turned to Samuel. "Shortest straw wins clean water." Thomas held out the straws for Samuel to pick. Samuel finally chose a straw in Thomas's left hand. "Doggone it," he said, as he held up his choice and placed it beside the shortest straw which Thomas held. "You always win." Years later, Almeda, that's their sister, Almeda would tell Samuel how Thomas was able to win by using his little finger to break off part of the straw. Eventually, the boys appeared from their room in clean clothes and hair combed. Thomas refilled the kettle with water from the cistern, placed it on the stove, and spotted the leftover sausage biscuits from breakfast. They had not stopped to eat dinner, as it was more important to finish the crib work. He took 4 biscuits and gave 2 to Samuel as they stepped from the back porch. Lady got up from her spot on the porch and started to follow. My first dog was Border Collie named Lady. She gave a whine and tucked her tail and stubbornly walked back to her spot after Thomas had told her to get back on the porch. They walked past the smokehouse. Thomas ducked inside. Samuel wondered what Thomas was up to as he disappeared inside, and he was even more perplexed when Thomas emerged with something in a burlap sack. "What are you doing?" inquired Samuel. Thomas did not reply, but he motioned for him to follow. They quickly put distance between them and the house, and only when it was out of sight did they slow down. "What do you have in the bag?" Samuel asked. "Hog Joe." "What are we in Hog Joe for?" Samuel asked. Thomas took a moment before he answered. "We'll need to keep Jumper busy." "Keep Jumper busy?" Samuel said. "What are you planning to do?" "I'm not sure at the moment, but when we get to Zeke's, we'll think of something. We'll need the Hog Joe to keep Jumper busy, or we'll never get in Zeke's yard." "I thought we were going to the schoolhouse," Samuel said. "We are," replied Thomas. "We'll go to the school so we can say that we went, but we're going to pay Zeke a visit later." It was almost dark at the time they reached the Lone Oak schoolhouse. And you remember where 48 and 13 merge as you go into Clarksville? That area in there was once upon a time called Lone Oak. Okay. My dad's first cousin married one of the Morgan brothers that owned all that land, and actually they farmed our sharecrop. They had sharecroppers that worked our farm as I was growing up. I have worked in tobacco though, but anyway. But we're going to pay Zeke a visit later. It was almost dark by the time they reached the Lone Oak schoolhouse. Thomas hid the burlap bag under a bush at the corner of the building. They went inside and bought tickets for the various events. Their cousins, Harry and Jordan, were already there. Harry spotted Thomas and held up a half-eaten popcorn ball. "You've got to get one of these." Thomas and Samuel greeted their cousins and asked, "Who all is here?" Well, they spent most of the next hour playing the games, bobbing for apples, and watching the square dancing. Everyone insisted that Thomas play the fiddle, and after finishing his tune, Thomas gave Jordan the excuse that he and Samuel had to leave soon. "Not until you arm wrestle me for a popcorn ball. Loser buys," insisted Jordan. Thomas gave in to Jordan, even though he really wanted to leave. Thomas put up a decent fight, so Jordan would think he had actually won. He bought the popcorn ball for the nickel for Mrs. Harris, their teacher. And there was a Miss Harris teacher at Central when I was going through the school there. He found Samuel in the crowd, and they got one last apple before slipping out the door. Thomas retrieved the bag from where he'd hidden. Samuel asked, "Do you think anybody's suspicious about us leaving early?" Thomas said, "I don't think so, but I hope no one was minding the time just in case he comes up later." Samuel and Thomas took advantage of the shadows being cast by an almost full moon as they quickly left the property. "We'll go down the Collinsville Road as far as the Morgan property," advised Thomas. "We'll cut across their farm to get to Zeke's pasture line." Collinsville? Anybody ever hear of Southside? Well, Southside used to be named Collinsville, but the post office changed the name because it was Collinsville, Collierville, Collinwood, and so they said there's too many sounds alike, so they up and changed the little town's name to the South Side. I had relatives that lived there too. One of my dad's sisters. The air was cool enough so they could see their breath. At times, the shadows of the partially leafed trees made shadows on the dirt road, which reminded them of ghouls and goblins. Miss Harris had read them a story about werewolves and a story about a headless horseman earlier in the week. Simon had garnered a lot of attention when he claimed that he had seen a werewolf on the Collinsville Road. "You can't believe anything Simon says," Thomas said. Samuel looked behind him. "I guess so, but things sure look spooky tonight." A brisk walk eventually brought them to the Morgan farm. They found the field road and began the trek toward Zeke's farm. They used the tree-lined pasture fence to bypass the Morgan house to get to Zeke's place. Getting through the fence, the boys found themselves in Zeke's pasture. Samuel pulled on Thomas's sleeve. "Did you forget about One-Horn Billy?" Zeke's bull was always ready to fight. One of his horns had been broken off during the fight with the Morgan bull. "Yes, I thought about it. We'll just have to keep a sharp eye out for him," Thomas said. "Maybe the darkness will keep us from being noticed." They made their way across the pasture to the barnyard fence. Most of Zeke's herd was lingering there from the evening feeding. They climbed the plank fence and lowered themselves into the feedlot. "Be careful where you step," reminded Samuel. As they made their way across the yard fence, some of the cows began to move nervously, trying to avoid the intruders. "So far, so good," whispered Thomas. They paused for a few moments at the yard fence to let the cows settle down. Thomas used this time to find Jumper. They climbed off the yard fence, and the horrible sound of a rip fell on their ears. "Oh no," exclaimed Samuel, "I ripped my coat." "We'll deal with that later," Thomas whispered as he stepped into Zeke's yard. "I'll get Almeida to patch it. She owes me a favor." As he retrieved the hog jolt from the burlap bag, Thomas saw Jumper on the top of the porch. The restless cows had apparently wakened him. Jumper trotted down the steps and stretched at the bottom. The boys waited nervously to see what he would do next. A light breeze flowing across the yard must have carried a whiff of the meat toward Jumper, and he took a step forward. Jumper's big ears slapped against the side of his neck. With his right arm, Thomas heaved the hog jolt like he was playing horseshoes. The meat made an arc across the yard toward Jumper's doghouse. The sound of the jaw landing startled Jumper. Thomas and Samuel waited with anticipation to see what Jumper's response would be. They were relieved when he did not let out one of his long hound dog bays. Instead, Jumper sniffed the air as he followed the trail of scent the jaw had made on its way across the yard. Relief flooded over the boys as Jumper trotted in the direction of the meat offering. Thomas and Samuel waited with anticipation. I just read that paragraph, excuse me. That should keep him busy for a while, noted Thomas. "What's the next part of the plan?" whispered Samuel. "Well, we could turn over his rain barrel, or take the wheels off his buggy," explained Samuel. "Let's not mess up his water. And the wheels would take too long," countered Thomas. Just then he spied Zeke's wood pile. Zeke had 4 or 5 bricks of wood cut for the winter. "I've got an idea. Let's stack his wood on his front porch in front of his door so he can't get to it in the morning." "Are you serious?" "Yeah," replied Thomas. "We don't want to do anything really bad. We just want to inconvenience him a little and let him know that somebody got close to him." As they made their way toward the woodpile, Thomas looked back to see what Jumper was doing. The spotted hound's attention was fully on the piece of meat. When they reached the woodpile, they filled their arms with wood. With their arms loaded with as many sticks as they could carry, they crept forward to the front porch. "There's no need for both of us to climb the steps each trip," Thomas said. "You lay your sticks on the end of the porch, and I'll stack them in front of the door." Samuel began to carry wood to the porch. He laid each stick down individually so as to avoid making noise. The rows began to stack up on the porch. It did not take long to have a shoulder-high stack. By adding crisscross sticks at the ends of each row, Thomas was able to increase the height of the row to the top of the door. The pile of wood was eventually transferred from the yard to the front porch. From time to time, Thomas looked in the direction of Jumper. Jumper's attention fully remained on the meat. Though the night air was chilly, the boys had sweat on their brows. Thomas carefully made his way down the porch steps, hoping that there would be no creaks to disturb Jumper. Pausing beside one another for a moment and to look at their past hour or so of work, the The boys realized how tired they were. As they reached the yard fence, Thomas turned for one last look at Jumper. The full moon cast enough light so that it was almost like day. Jumper was asleep next to what was left of the Joel. The boys climbed the fence, moved across the barn lot, and jumped over the second fence to the pasture. I would give anything to see the look on Zeke's face when he opens the door in the morning. All he will see will be the ends of the sticks, Thomas said with a chuckle. Samuel produced a slight grin. They made their way back to their farm, crossed the creek, and made their way up the hill past the horse stable and the corn crib to the smokehouse. Glenn will probably remember, you went up the hill, you passed the horse stable, you passed the corn crib, and got to grandmother's house on the hill there.
Yep.
When they reached the corner of the smokehouse, Thomas stopped suddenly. Oh no, I left the burlap bag. Zeke will probably think it was one of his that he dropped. Well, I doubt it when he smells the meat, Thomas said. As they made their way across the yard, Lady trotted over to meet them. Thomas reached out to give her a pat on the head. Lady began to lick his hands. She can still smell the meat on my hands, Thomas said. Remind me to wash up very carefully in the morning so no one will know I handle hog joe. They reached the porch and sat down on the rock step to take off their shoes. Walk next to the sides of the step, Thomas said. Why, asked Samuel? The steps will be less likely to creak next to the wall, Thomas said. The boys cautiously made their way to their room. They felt their way around in the dark to find their beds, and as tired as they were, it did not take long for sleep to settle over them. So soundly were the boys asleep that they did not hear Pa open the door at the bottom of the steps. However, when Pa reported that it was the second time he had called, and there was special emphasis on second time, Thomas and Samuel were up immediately. Quickly dressing and washing up, the boys slid silently into their seats at the table. You boys must have gotten in late last night, Pa said sternly. I'm not sure what time it was, said Thomas. Did you have fun, asked Almeida. Just like a girl. Enough, said Pa. Ma said, the food has been blessed, eat and get your morning chores done. We will not be late for church. Yes, ma'am, Thomas and Samuel answered together. For a while, everyone was busy eating. Pa finally said, Ma, when I went out to the smokehouse to get the Joel for you, I counted 6. I thought we had 7. Ma looked up in surprise. Yes, we had 7. What happened to the other one? Well, maybe we did miscount. But Pa did not seem completely satisfied with his statement. The boys were very interested in their plates of food. On Monday evening, Ma called them for supper time. Everyone filled their respective seats, and the meal began after Pa offered the blessing. After a while, Pa said, I ran into Zeke Wilson at the store. He was telling me something about a prank somebody pulled on him last Saturday night. Of course, it was a Halloween prank somebody done to him. He said he found a burlap sack that was not his in his yard, and it appeared that Jumper had a nice meal of a hog joe. The thing that he laughed about the most was that someone had stacked his wood pile on the front porch of on the front porch in front of his door. I guess he thought it would be inconvenience and not be able to get out. Zeke said he just happened to go out the back door until he'd used enough wood to get the front door open. The thing Zeke was most appreciative about was that someone had stacked his winter wood on the front porch out of the rain and snow. Thomas and Samuel knew better than to look at each other as they busied themselves with the food on their plates. Samuel asked Almeida to pass the butter as he reached for another biscuit. She hid a smile as she wiped her mouth on her apron. Just a little family story, you know. And of course, it's nonfiction, so you can embellish, you know. But the heart of the story is true. And the places, Lone Oak, Collinsville, the Morgan Farm, those are things in the community that I grew up in. Leah wanted me to read something. Have I got it? Leah wanted me to read something.
Part you long.
Okay. It's a story of flashbacks. You know, he's in the war. He's in Virginia. He is part of the Stonewall Brigade. A.P. Hill and Archer's group was part of the Stonewall Brigade. He was at the Battle of Chancellorsville and a lot of other battles, Winchester, Romney, some of those places up in northern Virginia. He was there. And, you know, again, I would think of myself as sitting on my grandparents' front porch up on the hill above the stable and the corn crib, and looking out across the farm, across the valley, and there was the creek that ran through, and there's the creek that runs through our farm. And I won't say I put myself in a trance, but I just sat there thinking, you know, it gave me little things that I could put in there, you know. So, again, each of you've got a story. Well, see, what I need to do is, I know I've got the yearbook. They're called yearbooks, not annuals, but yearbooks. My wife and I did the yearbook at Dixon County for probably, I think we counted it was about 24 years. You know, I'm in the process of putting down some thoughts and some things. And actually, I sat down a couple of weeks ago and I put first grade, and I put something down I remember from first grade, and second grade, and third grade, and fourth grade. And eventually, I'm gonna put it all down, you know, I mean, type it out on my computer and print it out, and I'm gonna call it Poppy's Thoughts. And we have 5 grandchildren now, and see, only 4 of them, and I'm not sure, one of my younger sons, the girls, she's not gonna know much about Dee. I think Catherine will, but Ada Grace and Jackson and Noah would, but put things in there about her, so they'll know something about her when they grow up. So she was my inspiration from time to time. You know, you going to finish that? Yeah. Well, we were involved in a traffic accident. She was killed, and I put the thing aside for a while. And finally, last September, she would want me to finish this, and so I finished up doing some things and finally got it submitted in November to the publisher. And she would read. I mean, she could have been an English teacher. She was a librarian, but she could have been an English teacher because she said, "Oh, you need a comma here. You don't need it there. You know, what's that infinitive? You know." My high school English. Well, I mean, after going through this so many times, you know, your brain, you can't see the forest for the trees. And I'm a little bummed out about a couple of mistakes in the book. But my high school English teacher read it, and she said, "Don't worry about it, I read stuff all the time." The editor, apparently he was just using a spell check program, because at one point in one sentence, Thomas was supposed to take a sip of water from his canteen. Well, somehow an L got in the word sip. So he was taking a slip of water from his canteen. But I missed it. I should have had somebody else besides me read it when he came back from editing. And they would have caught some things like that. But my high school English teacher says, "Quit apologizing for 3 or 4 little mistakes, you know." But I'm just OCD enough that I want it to be right. So I thank you for hearing me. Question?
First, I commend you for what you've done and are doing. And when I reflect back on my late wife, and she was working on her master's in historical preservation, and so she volunteered at the archives, state archive. She bring home stories because papers that were donated. And we had some serious conversations. She said, because this is lost forever. Now, no one's writing letters anymore. There's no correspondence. There's no writing of the history, that kind of thing. And you hit that note when I thought, you know, it's really true. A lot of history is in paper somewhere, but more and more is going away. And I think what you've done is encapsulated it because of what you wanted to do, but also wanting to share it with your heirs, ancestors, and loved ones and friends. I really think it's outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really do.
One of my friends read it, and I didn't like the ending. What do you mean you like the ending? You left it hanging, you're gonna have to write another one that, you know. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's just the way it worked out, because I just kinda wanted a little surprise ending there. But, you know, the battles, I didn't, you know, being flashbacks, I didn't have to worry about getting this battle in front of that battle, you know, because a historian would know that this battle was fought, first Manassas was fought before, you know, whatever, you know. Since it was flashbacks, I didn't have to worry about that. I did look up the fact that the Headless Horseman was written before 1860, so, you know, that there was a little outside research, I say, you know. A couple of the names in the, like Zeke Wilson, I thought, I better come up with a name that there was nobody in the community as I grew up, because there's another character in there that, his name was Crabtree. There was no Crabtrees in the neighborhood. So, yeah, you've got stories. You've got stories. So,
Zeke Wilson, I know of Bruce Wilson that lives out in your area.
well,
Bruce Wilson.
do what?
Everybody knows Bruce Wilson.
Didn't he close?
Just like you told me, there's other Bobby, I said, he introduced me, I said, well, they got some Bobbies and Dickies. Oh, we're not kin. Well, see, Bruce and Zeke aren't kin. So, yes, I mean, I have enjoyed, your mother was a teacher, wasn't she? Biology? No, I'm looking at Dan. Was she biology?
Biology, physics.
Okay. I was on Austin got me on the Southern Association Committee to come down, and we reviewed the old school as y'all were going into the new high school. I was on that Southern Association Committee that did that, and I know I had, and she loaned me some books when I was doing my master's write-up. I reviewed about 40-something biology books about the placement of evolution in high school biology books. And boy, that is something that has changed, you know. Back in the 40s, the word didn't even exist. But then we get to the 70s, and evolution all of a sudden is a fact. But anyway, so I guess well, you can see where I fit in that topic. But anyway, you know, as I mentioned, I was the company cook. I cooked for 17 people one weekend over a campfire in our artillery battery. And I played third man on the cannon, and I was getting my thumb over the vent hole while they're loading it, you know, and put the fuse in there and so forth. And then you put your, well, we had earplugs, of course. But to stand by that cannon, just shooting 6 ounces of powder, you know, maybe 10 sometimes. I mean, it blows your pants sideways when it goes off. We had and reenacting, I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it can still be dangerous. You have to pound in the charge. And we're looking down the line of cannons one day, and this guy's, I mean, he's getting at everything he's got, and he better, you know, what about that time, boom, it blew that rod through his hands. And he's looking, look, no skin. You know, a guy on a horse about as far as me as the doors back there ran across cannon as it went off, and the percussion blew him right off of his horse. You know, just playing, you know, can be terrible. But I did fix some. Well, I never fixed anything like this in a reenactment. But these are some 1860s and 1830 recipes over here. And I listed what's in the ingredient and what it is. And notice one of the measurements was put in a wine glass of milk. You know, I guess that was not a cup. But anyway. Molasses cookies and something called strawberry cakes. And then, of course, hardtack. That was a staple. But anyway, thank you for listening, and thank you for having me down. And you got stories.
And you did bring some books with you if we
Yes,
wanted to
we
copy
have
those.
some.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some.
Okay, just see Mr. Chadwick and that adjourns our meeting. Thank you and see you in May.